Hello there. Welcome to the channel. I know this is a strange angle and you haven't seen it before, but this is my second day on demonstrations, and today's demonstration is a piece I've done for my students for years, and I think it might be useful to anyone who's thinking about how we approach the problems of our lives. This is a simple blank sheet of typing paper, and these are 3 crayons. Exciting. I always did this demonstration after I had asked the students to write a description. If the description included more than one sensory detail, then I gave the students 1 crayon. If they included more than 2, I gave them 2. More than 3, I gave them 3. If they didn't include but 1 sensory detail in their descriptions, they got no crayons. And then the assignment was, during class today, I want you to make something beautiful. And I'm going to judge it whether or not it's beautiful, and you're going to be competing with the other students to see how beautiful your object is. Now, this always made them rather upset. So of course it was partly just designed to get them thinking about how some things seem fair and some things don't, and how what I'd given them was based on what they'd already done, but it also upset them because they just felt somehow it wouldn't be fair. But really what I was preparing to do was to talk to them about how we think about our situation and what we're provided, and how we approach things so that we don't become trapped in thinking there's only one way to make something work. So after I introduced that concept, I would have them take their paper and fold it as I'm folding this one here in a kind of a triangle with this little overhang at the edge. And then I would have them do the same fold on the other side so that you would get an X in the middle of that square. One of the things that I did too was I would do this up in the air, and I may do a part of it up in the air today, just to give them a sense of the fact that it can be done even without the surface. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold off the extra. I'm teaching the paper, first of all, what is going to happen. I'm bending it first gently and then creasing it. And this harkens back to something I said before about how I think creation is made to learn. It's made for learning, and it's certainly made for learning in this case. I'm going to tear this strip off. So now, essentially, I have a square, as you can see. Well, origami, traditional origami, is based on this shape, the square. And almost all origami starts with this combination of folds. There was a great origami philosopher who taught that what origami is based on, in order to fold anything, any creature or object, you had to understand that creature or object, and you had to understand its life. And of course, life goes back to the egg. And so the original square piece of origami paper was emblemized by it emblemized or symbolized the egg. And by making these 4 folds that create these triangles, you are actually creating the beginning of life, which is actually the blastomere. After the egg is fertilized, it starts to divide and shape. So now I'm going to take these 2 corners and I'm going to do a collapse fold. Now, when I would teach this fold to my classes, this would be the first test of their ability to see what I was doing and interpret what I was doing and respond to it. And that is sort of interesting too, if you think about it. Now, you'll see here I have a kind of a collapsed square, and so there's more layers now of the paper. And one of the things that I discovered, now at this point I would say, okay, you're going to put the open part toward you, and you're going to fold a kite fold. So with this top layer, you're going to make a kind of a kite shape. And because most life has a symmetry about it, not all life, but most life has some symmetry about it, you pretty much do to one side what you did to the other. So the mirrors fold to make the top kite here. Okay. So it looks like that. There's a kite on top of a square. Then you turn on over the square and do the kite fold again. Oftentimes at this point students would become frustrated, and this is nowhere near as frustrating as it's going to get. But some students would at this point say, can I get another piece of paper? So it looks like the two kites backed up against each other. And now you're going to do some teaching folding. So folding kind of teaches the paper what you want it to do. And that way, that crease will stay and it will affect how the paper is related to the next fold. Now, we're making a flapping bird. At this point, I haven't told the students that. But that's what we're making, and we're about to fold up a wing. So here's my kite fold, and there's a slight crease along this line. And then I'm going to lift this top layer up. And as I do, I'm going to reverse the folds. And that little crease is going to be a guide for how I want those folds to reverse and to function. Now, the wonderful thing about the flapping bird as a fold, especially if students haven't done any folding before, is that it is pretty forgiving. It's a pretty forgiving fold. They can make mistakes and it can still function pretty well. More so than some of the other folds. There are much more complicated folds, but this is one of my favorites. And then you're going to fold up the other, do the same thing on the other side, so you're going to get another wing. And that's important. Because, of course, if you're going to make a bird, it's going to need its wings. Even penguins who don't fly have wings. Even ostriches who don't fly have beautiful and magnificent wings. They're just not big enough to lift that huge bird body up. Okay, so this is what you're going to have. It has like legs down here, and then these things that are going to become the wings up at the top. Now, from this position, I'm going to make a W. So I'm going to take the fold and do this and this. Now I'm not folding it hard, I'm just creasing it a little bit to teach it. Okay? But you'll see the W there. See the W? Do you see the W? I have no idea if I'm on camera or not, and I don't have time to fix this, so God help us, I'm on camera to some extent. Okay, so I'm going to unfold that. I'm going to use these creases as a guide, and I'm going to open up the side of the bird and invert that fold into the body of the bird. Now, that's almost always where the kids that were just struggling to keep up went, oh man, I can't do this. So I'm going to show you again. Here, I'm going to come to the side. I'm going to kind of put my thumb under here and force that W up inside the body of the folds. So that's what it looks like right there. Okay. Now, I look carefully at it and I decide which side is the uglier side. And I've decided that, let's see, I think maybe this side is not as pretty. So I'm going to pinch fold it down and make a bird's head. like that. And now is the flapping part. So in order for the wings to fly, I have to curl them a little bit. Not much, just a little bit of a curl to convince them of what I want them to do. I want them to flap. Okay? And then I'm going to grab the breastbone of the bird and the base of the tail, and I'm going to tug. I'm going to tug, and it's going to flap! Yay! It flapped! Oh my goodness, it flapped! Now, once we got to this stage, the students were free to decorate the birds as they chose. Okay, there it is, the bird fold, the flapping bird, the bird. The bird. Now, after we did that and they managed to make the fold, and there were some kids that would have to try it a couple of times, I would put a hole in it and hang them from the ceiling. I'd have the kids decorate them if they chose to and put their initials on them, and they got a participation credit for it. The important thing about this kind of demonstration is it helps students be more sensitive to watching and listening to instructions at the same time. And another important part of this demonstration has to do with how time moves, and we don't feel it sometimes, especially if we're working on something. Time changes when we're working on something, and that's part of the fun of this bird fold. I'd always tell them, I'm going to hang these from the ceiling of the room, and whenever I'm grading papers, I'll be thinking of all the little people who made these flapping birds. They'd say things like, my bird doesn't flap right. There's no wrong way to flap, kid. That's it for today. I hope you have a glorious rest of the day, and I hope you see me again. Tomorrow, of course, on Wednesday, I'll be reading from one of my famous authors. See you then, you gorgeous people.